Australia is on fire, and it's bigger than you think. 12.35 million acres of land have been burnt by bushfires so far. That's almost twice the size of Belgium, and 3 times more land than the 2018 California fires and Brazil's 2019 Amazon fire combined. Flames have reportedly reached 70 meters high. That's taller than the Sydney Opera House. At least 19 people have been killed and more than 1,400 homes have been destroyed. Residents and tourists have been forced to relocate.
Just get out while we can.
Nearly 500 million animals have died in New South Wales alone. The fires aren't just in one location. They're raging everywhere across the country.
Last Friday, Soleimani landed in Iraq at Baghdad airport. He was with an Iraqi paramilitary commander named Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis and other Iraqi officials. Circling somewhere high above them was a Reaper, a U.S. military remote-controlled killer drone. It's unlikely they would have seen or heard it. To give you an idea of what these men were facing, here's video of a drone missile being tested. And here's some amateur footage from Baghdad that reportedly shows the actual missile strike on the convoy. They probably died instantly.
Minutes from disaster. New cell phone video appears to show Kobe Bryant's helicopter circling near Burbank Airport before the crash. Tuesday, the NTSB used a helicopter to airlift the wreckage off the hillside. The coroner says all 9 victims have now been recovered and 4 have been positively identified, including Kobe Bryant.
This was a high-energy impact crash.
About 35 minutes after takeoff, with the weather deteriorating, pilot Azerbaijan asked controllers to track him on radar, but he was flying too low. 4 minutes later, he radioed he was going to go above the layer of clouds. Flying in potentially blinding fog, he reached 2,300 feet. In its final 12 seconds of flight, the helicopter banked left and abruptly descended, falling at up to 5,000 feet per minute. Its last recorded speed, about 184 miles per hour.
It took 4.5 years. It saw off 2 prime ministers and created a huge rift in British politics. But finally, Brexit is over. Boris Johnson has reached a deal with the European Union. But what exactly is the new Brexit deal? And what's going to change as a result? Well, technically, Brexit happened ages ago. The UK officially left the EU back in January 2020, but nothing much really changed because we went into a transition period where we basically just carried on using most of the arrangements we had before. But now, they've finally agreed on a huge trade deal, which kicks off at the start of 2021. It's really about way more than just trade though. It covers everything from food and drink to immigration, from fishing to counter-terrorism.
The 2020 Summer Olympics, now the latest major sports cancellation caused by the global COVID-19 pandemic. So let's take a look by the numbers. The summer of 2021, that's when the 2020 Summer Olympics will now be held in Tokyo after Japanese officials and the International Olympic Committee announced today the games would be postponed. Some 11,000 athletes from more than 200 countries were expected to compete in the Summer Games, but the global pandemic halted training and would likely make travel in the coming months virtually impossible. And after 2 nations, Canada and Australia, announced that they would not send their athletes to Tokyo if the games went on, followed by the U.S. swimming and track and field teams calling for postponement. The writing was on the wall for a delay. Japan has reportedly spent more than $12 billion to organize this year's Olympics, meaning postponing it will likely be a costly move, but hopefully the games will indeed go on next summer without a hitch.
Disturbing 9-minute video opened Pandora's box, unleashing the wrath behind an endless string of footage highlighting a centuries-old issue.
Justice for Ahmaud! Justice for Ahmaud! Say her name! Breonna Taylor! Say his name! George Floyd!
Many comparing this year's grassroots groundswell to the beginning of the civil rights movement, inspired by the lynching of a black teenager in 1955.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
I remember back in 2014 when we would say Black Lives Matter and all the pushback that we would receive. You know, people would call us terrorists.
But this time, protests spread to all 50 states, cities big and small, making it the biggest movement in U.S. history.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
Those chants reverberating around the world.
On September 27th, explosions shook Nagorno-Karabakh. It's a mountainous region between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and the center of a relentless dispute between these countries. Nagorno-Karabakh is internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, but was occupied by Armenia in a war almost 30 years ago. Both countries' armies have been dug in along this line ever since. Fighting occasionally broke out, but usually died down. This time was different. Fierce fighting erupted in September 2020 and quickly became a full-scale war. Both sides were accused of bombing civilian areas in the region. Thousands of people died, including 100 civilians. Then, in a sudden and dramatic turn in this decades-old conflict, Armenia surrendered. A ceasefire was signed on November 9th, and Azerbaijan declared victory.
In New York, the moment the entire country has been waiting for after a very close race. NBC News now projects that Joe Biden has won the Keystone State, Pennsylvania, and its 20 electoral votes.
And that means we can now project that former Vice President Joe Biden has been elected President of the United States. He is President-elect Joseph Robinette Biden at 77 years old. Chuck, we'll turn to you. This map is a real interesting one, not necessarily the path that anyone thought would have unfolded, but here we are.
Here we are. Look, we got just enough vote in order to call Pennsylvania, even if it may slip into a recount. We think there's just the mathematically nearly impossible for the order of finish to change in Pennsylvania.